Oh boy, do I have a special treat for you guys today. This is episode 106, and we're on the Healthy Runner podcast where we help you get stronger, run faster, and become a lifelong injury-free runner. And today I have the one, the only India Cook, an avid Atlanta-based runner, YouTube vlogger, podcast host, RRCA certified run coach, race announcer, and motivational speaker. It is such
Yes,
an honor to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, India.
of course. Thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here. And
Yeah,
hello, everyone.
I'm very excited to chat about this all important topic that any body can run as it relates to inclusion and diversity within our running community. For those that don't know, India is an advocate for all paces and all body types in the space of road running and racing. She loves running, but also has a passion for encouraging and guiding runners and those who aspire to become runners. So India coaches independently through her own company, Miles from India, and coaches with a nonprofit organization, ARC, Active Resolute Connected. This organization empowers women through running and helps to break mental and physical barriers. As of 2021, India also sits on the board member of Coaches of Color Initiative, an organization whose mission is to provide meaningful opportunities for those of color aspiring to successful careers as endurance coaches. So in this episode, India is going to share her passion with us about making the sport of running more diverse and less intimidating. We are going to give some extra love to the back of the pack runners. And
Yes.
then, yes, and then we're going to share some tips on how we can all be more inclusive to others in our community. And if you are a new runner or you have been intimidated by other quote unquote runners you see in your neighborhood, at local road races, or on social media, then this is the episode for you. So, India, we start all of our episodes with a little dynamic warm up because we're so passionate about spreading the word of educating our running community about active warm ups versus what our parents and grandparents used to do. So, if you can tell our Healthy Runner listeners, where are you from and what do you do?
Yes. So, hello, everyone. I am born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and I still live in Atlanta, Georgia. I actually, on a business side of things, I work in human resources now. And on the personal side of things, of course, I am a certified run coach and I am a partner, a daughter, and all the things in between race announcer and everything that you listed there. So I think a lot of people get surprised when they hear the things that I do, but also don't forget that I do work a full-time job still.
Wow. Yeah. Like so many, right? Like so many in
Yes,
our running community. We're all juggling multiple jobs, as am I.
juggling it all,
Uh,
right?
but we're like
Well,
living our passion, though, right?
I
Isn't
was just
that?
about to say that, or just fueling our passion, something that we absolutely enjoy and we love, and we just continue to do what we love and we make it work. So,
Yeah. And, thank you for those that are on Facebook right now. You guys are coming on strong here for India, jumping on the live. So let me just give you some shout outs here. David's here, Sue's here, Tanya's here on the live. Paul DeVillo is here, and he's the one who actually connected us. We were just talking about that, Paul. I was trying to
yes.
think about how I originally started following India, and I think it was your suggestion. So thank you for that. Paul is a friend of the show. He's been on the podcast before talking about mental strategies for overcoming in your races, which is super helpful. Your episode, Paul, I give all of my coaching clients before their races. So just a little shout out. Coach Kat's here, Cheryl's here, and Trisha's here. So thank you guys for jumping on
Yes.
here. Feel free to drop any questions for India that you have in the comment box, and we will get to those during the show today. And India, I've been listening to you and Tommy, like shout out to Tommy Mitchell on
Yes.
your Run Duo podcast during my runs for a couple of months now. And
Yeah.
um, Today we're not only going to kind of get into different body types of runners, but inclusivity within the running community in general, whether it is size, shape, color, gender, sexual orientation. 2020 not only brought about changes in our lives with respect to the global pandemic we're going through, but also really opened the door a bit more about the conversation surrounding diversity in our country and in many organizations. They've taken some positive steps, I think, in the right direction with regard to inclusivity and diversity. But we still know we need to do more. And I know you've been an advocate, a champion, for really starting this conversation in regards to like our running community. And that's why I wanted to kind of bring you on here to really share some tips for our community, so we can all be a little better at ways that we go about that and making sure that we are including everyone in our running journeys, in our running programs, our communities, anything that we're really doing as runners. But before we get into some of those like deep kind of topics there,
Yes.
can you just share with our listeners a little bit about like your running journey? Like, how long have you been a runner for?
Yeah, sure. So I have been running since 2008, but I was very much so casually running in 2008. So from 2008 to about 2014, I was casually running. I would sign up for one race a year. It was the Peachtree Row Race. I would only sign up for that race. I would train up for that race and then I will fall off. So I was not consistent at all, but I did have a love for running. I enjoyed the race environment. I enjoyed the things that I was doing within that running, and kind of running was a little outlet for me, but I just wasn't as committed as I am now. So it wasn't until about 2014, 2015 that I said, you know what, I'm going to stop running a race a year and I'm going to get serious about this running thing. So that is when I joined a local run club here in Atlanta called Movers and Pacers. And that run club kind of opened up a lot of different avenues for me. So I became a captain of that run club in very little time that I started running with them. And it just kind of blossomed from there. So I feel like I found a niche in running. I found a bug in running. And I think a lot of the people that I ran with at that time saw a passion and a love that I don't even think I saw at the time, Dwayne. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
I knew it. I just knew that I wanted to connect and be social as well as have some accountability. So I decided to join that run club. And it has brought me to where I am now. So, of course, to this day, I've done 3 marathons and I've done about 16 half marathons and endless numbers of 5Ks, 10Ks, and other distances. But I'm in here. I'm pretty committed to it, and running is my thing.
Yeah, and I love your passion for it. And as those that are listening on the podcast, you're going to want to check out the video version of this on YouTube, or Spark Your Training YouTube channel, because India's got a sweet
Oh, my
runner's
little.
wall. Like, she puts mine to shame. And I actually saw her video on her YouTube channel, and she has an
Yeah.
awesome video that actually describes, if you want a wall like India's, she teaches you how to do it. And
Yes.
she's got some sweet medals there. I love the display. I love the
Thank
custom
you.
one too. I'm gonna need to look into that to upgrade
Yeah.
mine behind me here. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
but when you started the run club, is that when you really got consistent with your running?
Yes, it was when I got consistent with running and racing. So I kind of, when I started with the run group, I was running probably about 3 to 4 days a week once I started with them. So that kind of opened the door to my consistency. And then of course they held me accountable to the racing as well. So I went from doing one race a year to basically doing a race a month. So I really kind of cranked it up and started signing up for races, just going.
Yeah, and back in 2008, what was your reason for actually starting to run? What was your main why back then?
Yeah, so I feel like I had 3 main whys back then. One was weight loss. I was on a journey for weight loss, and that to this day has drastically changed. Like, running is not for me for weight loss. So whenever someone kind of says, oh, you're running to lose weight, and it's like, no, it's so much more than that now. And I don't connect weight loss and running at all for me. Like, I just feel like it has definitely transitioned from that. But one of the reasons in 2008 was weight loss. The other was I was working in mental health, and it was really my release for the day. I am definitely an evening runner. I like running after my day so that I can release my day. I think about my day and I leave my day out on the pavement. So that was the other reason. And then I also was a semi-pro cheerleader for a season, and after that season ended, I needed something to kind of shift me from working out and doing weights and doing all that stuff to stay fit as a cheerleader. And I also wanted something that was kind of community based and kind of support, but still individual, and running just fell in line with that.
Okay. See the cheerleading thing. I didn't know that. I didn't get that in some of the episodes that I've heard.
I don't share that often.
Okay. Something that you probably wouldn't have thought about me, but I was a dancer my whole life, kind of growing up. So that's actually was my first sport before running.
I think I listened to your episode with Ali on the Run, and I remember y'all had a whole little conversation.
Oh yeah, it was like 30 minutes. I was like, oh man, all the runners like tuning out to this conversation. If any runners were dancers, they're like, oh, this was awesome. But yeah,
there with you guys.
That's too funny. Okay, cool. Yeah. And what would you say out of all of the, races that you've done now, you've done so many that are on your wall there, what would you say like your favorite race distances nowadays?
So my favorite distance race, I would say, is a half marathon. I feel like it challenges you enough, but it also doesn't take so much out of your life to train for it. We all know that marathon training can be very cumbersome in as far as the time, but I think half marathon training is good. It's a good challenge, but it kind of keeps you in the game, but you can also push through. So between the half marathon and the 10K, I really do also like the 10K.
Yeah, no, I agree. Half marathon is my favorite as well. And you know what ones like they're hard to find, but the 10 miler, like I think the 10 miler, if they had more of them, I think that would be my favorite.
So Atlanta does a 10 miler every year, and I actually love the 10-mile distance. I really do. So they do a 10 miler, the PNC 10 miler. They always do in October. So it's something that's a staple here in Atlanta. So I do like that distance, but I guess for me, 13.1 is, always going to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, and I actually visited Georgia for the first time ever last summer, and it was the week before the Peachtree. And so I was visiting my uncle down in Greenville, South Carolina, and he wanted to take us to the Georgia Aquarium. So we went to the aquarium for a day, and I was like, well, down there, because it was only like, I don't know, an hour and a half ride, maybe 2 hours, I think, from Greenville. I was like, oh, can I do this Peachtree? Because it was right. It was basically the same weekend. Like we were down there for the 4th. Yeah. But unfortunately, like signups were closed and everything. But yeah, I hear that's an awesome race. It's like huge, right? It's like a classic staple race. Yeah.
So the Peachtree Row Race is the world's largest 10K. So usually it's 60,000 people that run that race. So of course, due to the pandemic, the last couple of years have looked very different, but traditionally it's a 60,000 person 10K. And it's always on the 4th of July, and it is always an amazing time. It is the staple of Atlanta in regards to racing. Getting a bib, there's a lottery that you have to enter for this 10K, or you can become an Atlanta Track Club member and get into the race through that. But yes, it is definitely a well-wanted race. People try to sell their bibs and do all kinds of stuff. Like, it's a race that trying to get a number can be very difficult. So yes, the week before is not happening.
Yeah. And I know you're very involved with the Atlanta Track Club, right? Like, what is your involvement with them?
Yes. So I was an ambassador for 2 years with them. So I did ambassadorship for 2020 as well as 2021. To be determined for 2022. So we'll see what that will look like. And I actually have done some partnerships with them. So I've done some independent freelance work with them as far as connecting for interviews and things of that nature. So very vested involved. I've done big photo shoots and stuff with them as well. So they are my good friends, and I love to be involved in anything that they're doing. And I'm so excited for their new partnership with Adidas. So it's going to be a good year.
Awesome. Yeah. So if anyone's listening to this right now and you haven't, checked out the Run Duo podcast or India for Miles YouTube channel, she does a lot of local info too for road races in Georgia. So I would definitely, check that out. She's got the know on all the local race scene that's going on. So I know you had mentioned, you were in the mental health field. Now you're doing some HR stuff. And obviously, you're doing some run coaching, motivational speaking, race announcing. Like, how did all of that transition? Are you kind of out of the mental health field right now? And, if so, what was it that kind of changed your path that you pivoted on?
Sure. So I did do mental health for a little bit over 10 years. That is what my degrees are in. So I have an undergrad in psychology and I have a master's in social work. And I'm also licensed on a social work end. So I did that for several years. My work was actually a big chunk of that work was with individuals with developmental disabilities, as well as I worked at a psychiatric hospital. So a lot of my time was in the very high intense cases when people were really at need for services. So a lot of the critical times of individuals' lives. So for me, it took a lot. My 10 years, a little over 10 years felt like 30. And it was time for me to pivot out of mental health. So I have been out of mental health for the last, I would say about 5 years now, 4 to 5 years. I've been out of mental health and I transitioned to human resources, which I think is a great fit. I do still use my mental health skills. Obviously, in HR, you are communicating with people, you're communicating with carriers, you're communicating with different things. And of course, people come to you with very sensitive information and details and different things that go on in their life. So I do feel as if I still use it in my professional life. I do still use my mental health background in my work. But when it came to coaching and things of that nature, it was more so I'm really big on having, I won't say balance, but having a hobby as well as your personal job. I feel like there are a lot of people that have a job and that's kind of what encompasses their whole life, their well-being. Whereas for me, I always love having a hobby. And I feel like running was my hobby or is continue to be my hobby and my passion. And that transitioned me into run coaching. It was a lot of people that were asking me questions. What do I do here? What do I do there? And I decided to put a certification behind my name and coach officially, of course, for several years. When people would ask me questions, I would give my experience and advice behind it. But of course, I wanted to become definitely certified as a coach and kind of back it up there. So for me, coaching along with my personal job is something that is just a passion for me. I love to do it. It honestly doesn't feel like work, even though I'm paid. It does not feel like work because it's just something that I love to do. So I feel like the pivot between working my personal job as well as the run coaching was just more so me being able to benefit from a passion that I have. And so that's where the run coaching came from. And of course, the race announcing and everything else as well.
Yeah, no, I love that that you are, living your passion. I think that's important
Mm-hmm.
in life. And yeah, if you enjoy it so much, it's really not work, right?
Right.
And that's what I'm definitely starting to find at this point in my career as well. It's just so much more rewarding, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you don't mind doing it.
Right.
And yeah, I think your story is very similar to one of our coaches on our Healthy Runner team, Coach Latoya. She was
Mm-hmm.
doing kind of coaching for years, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
of runners. And then she became formally certified and did the RRCA
Right.
coaching
Right.
course as well. But no, that's awesome. And so let's get into this kind of topic of, inclusivity. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
curious in what does that mean for you? What does that word mean for you in our running community?
Yeah. So I just think inclusivity definitely can give you it's a wide array of things. So it can be from being inclusive in regards to pace, abilities or lack thereof of abilities, depending upon your body type. It's so many different things that I feel like if we were to include so many people of a vast variety of individuals, it could really change the running scene and what it looks like. I feel like for so long we've had this particular stamp of what people think a runner looks like, but it doesn't encompass everyone that is within the running community. And of course, we may not be able to touch on each individual person, excuse me, but I think that there are a vast variety of individuals that are not illustrated or welcomed or seen within the large mass of individuals that actually do run. I think the conversation becomes more open when you're talking to people that may not be within the running scene all the time or the racing scene all the time. If you were to ask someone, what do you think a runner looks like or what is it? And of course, to me, there's not a a runner's body or a runner's look for me, because I'm in the running community. But for someone outside of it, they may have a staple look or a staple feel, or they may be an elite person. They may be the person that is going to the Olympics. That may be their thought, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a big misconception, right, that you bring up. And even some people, say to me when they find out I'm a runner, and they do have these misconceptions of like, runners are just these like skinny people. And I think that's like where you bring up the weight loss thing. And I know Coach Kat in our community was talking about this the other day, because so many women, especially, I find, go into running for weight loss. And as you start to train, not necessarily everyone does lose weight. Like you can, right? If you are, burning more calories and you're being more active than you have been, but really to do it properly and build up the right way, you shouldn't be going out there at a 9-10 effort when you go out for a run. So it's not like doing a HIIT class or a boot camp class where you're can hardly breathe, because if we did that with running, we'd get injured, right? So I think that's a big misconception out there, is that those start running and saying, oh, I'm going to get quote unquote skinny, whatever that is, right? And I'm going to do it for weight loss. And I agree that runners are all abilities. And like when we've done some like group-based team, coaching programs. And I've even had people reach out to me and is like, oh, why don't you do a program for like a, sub 3:30 marathon group or a sub 2 half marathon group? And I'm like, no, because our half marathon group is going to be, it doesn't matter what pace you run. Like you can be in our program and you can be, coach, whether you're running a 13-minute mile or you're a 6-minute mile. You could be a part of our program and our community.
I think I was going to say it's very interesting. And I appreciate you and your group for doing that, because honestly, when I've gone to group runs and let's say you have a Tuesday group run. And you may have someone that comes up, they're new to running and they're like, hey, I would like to run with you all. Basically, how does this work? And they're basically like, okay, you basically just make sure you keep up with us. But their keep up with us may be a 9-minute mile. Like if their whole crew is a 9-minute mile. I think that is one thing that we as individuals, whether it be group runs or wherever, inclusivity means finding ways to include everyone. Meaning if you are a leader of a group run, there should be someone that can assist with the back of the pack runners. There should be someone that can stick with or help your 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-minute while. If you want to separate it out to just walkers, run walk intervals, whatever it is, there should be someone. And of course, someone that may be at the 6-minute mile, like however it is. But I think that we just have to do better with including that. And that includes marathon pacing. Like for so long, I feel like I've only seen, I feel like marathon pacing has a cap. Like when you have a pace group, a lot of times they're not looking at your 6:30, your 7-hour marathons. They're capping it out at 5:30, and then they're not looking at anything other than, further than that. So I feel like that is also an area of growth that we could have and that's a piece of inclusivity, is including everyone and their abilities kind of around the globe on that. If you are a run coach, or if you're someone that is heavy on social media, if you're posting pace times, sometimes you'll see people with like charts of, okay, for your 5-minute pace, you should be running, or a 5-hour marathon or whatever it is, you should be running these paces. What about further? Like what is, let's go further than a 12-minute mile. I feel like a lot of education and information we have does not go further than that. And even stock photos, like sometimes we have stock photos. I don't know about you, but when you Google stock photos to kind of put in graphics, those aren't diverse photos.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Of different body types, abilities, someone that may use a wheelchair, like it's just not inclusive of it, the body types. And of course, I feel like they're starting to add different race and color in there, but there's so much more to inclusivity than just that. So I just want to name a couple of those examples that I feel like could be done within the running community that could really change some things.
Yeah, and I think that was like one of the things that really caught my attention early on as I started listening to your show was
Mm-hmm.
that you don't only support and provide like representation for the Black community, but really
Mm-hmm.
to all communities. As I've listened to like your YouTube videos, you've done some great work with the Asian Pacific Islander community, Native
Mm-hmm.
American community, the LGBTQ community, and
Mm-hmm.
really making sure that all communities are represented, within our space. And, I really kudos to you for
Thank
doing
you.
that. And even like you've
Mm-hmm.
even talked about mental health, challenges
Mm-hmm.
and those that are struggling from mental
Mm-hmm.
health standpoint, within our running community. So I think that's what's really neat about, the work that you're doing. And I think people, see that and they realize that. And, for me personally, I guess, is like I've never seen, I guess, one specific type of runner because I guess I didn't come from like a traditional runner background,
Mm-hmm.
where I don't know, I'm an adult onset runner, was like a PT and
Yeah.
then became a runner. So I've
Mm-hmm.
always had diversity in my life, whether it was,
Mm-hmm.
the high school I grew up, my wife's, family is Hispanic, and
Right.
it's just something that has never even been an issue for me personally. And like our
Mm-hmm.
whole healthy runner coaching team is, from all walks of life, and everyone is
Right.
at different abilities levels. But
Yeah.
I think it is something that, um, I guess those that ascend in the running space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something to just kind of be aware of, and to make sure that we are including everyone in like those back of the pack runners, like you said, and like all shapes and sizes. And I actually talked about this in my last episode of like, my feeling, my belief system is like anyone can run. And it's, people have that misconception of like, oh, I'm not skinny and I can't run. Like I can never do that. And there's been people that no matter what size you are, no matter what your fitness level is, like we've been able
Mm-hmm.
to safely run. Right. And
Right.
it's something that I think, more people should, think about, or those like you mentioned that aspire to be runners, they can do it if
Yeah.
they, do it the right way and they get the
Yeah.
proper guidance. And, there are ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something that is dependent upon, one specific area, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's multi layers as to why and some of the reasons why people feel like they may not be able to run, right? Like if you think about it, Dwayne, if you're looking at traditional magazines or you're looking at traditional brand connections, you may not be seeing a lot of people of color on in those platforms. You may not be seeing a lot of people of color out there doing certain things, or people with different abilities, or the illustration of different back of the pack runners. So if you are a traditional runner and you Google what is a runner, or you're a traditional person, excuse me, and you Google what is a runner and you're looking up online runner things and you don't see someone that looks like you, it automatically puts you in a place of, well, do I belong? Right. So I think that it kind of starts there. And I think there's a lot of people that try to define what a runner is. You don't have to be a marathoner to be considered a runner. If you run to the end of your driveway, you're a runner. If you run to the
Yes.
stop sign, you're a runner.
Yes.
So I think it starts there with like the mentality of what is a runner. I think people get caught up on that, and then social media doesn't help with what what people try to assume they are. They start to compare themselves. Well, I can't run that fast, so I must not be a runner. So it just kind of comes into these layers, and I think it takes people like you and I that have these platforms to kind of change that narrative, as well as working with these brands so that they can change what they're putting out there in the media, so that they can help to kind of change what it looks like in the narrative of being a runner and who can actually run. And until those things continue to change, a lot of people that are aspiring to be runners are probably going to have a slower entry into running, as I did as well.
Yeah, such a good point. Such a good point. Oh man. Yeah, and can you talk? I really enjoyed your episode that you had with Matt Fitzgerald on your show about the new project that you guys have going on to add some more inclusivity into our run coaching community, because like you said, if people don't have an entryway into the sport, if they don't see coaches that are from their backgrounds, that look like them, or have their, backstory and, things like that, then it's hard for people to think, oh, I can do this and I can be a runner. Can you share a little bit about the Coaches of Color initiative?
Yeah, sure. And just to quickly piggyback off of what you just said, I think when it comes to coaching, as an athlete, you always, when it comes to coaching, you want to be able to empathize with this person that is coaching you, right? Like you want to feel like you can connect with them, or even that you can bring up concerns or questions or barriers. You want to be able to bring that to your coach so that you can have an effective training cycle or effective training block. But if you can't connect with your coach on certain things, whether it be a cultural disconnect that you may have, an issue that you may have had at home, it kind of causes you to kind of have some caution. So I think it's important for us to really diversify the coaching scene, or actually give us the platform to be able to be seen, because there's a lot of diverse coaches out here, but are we getting the platform to be seen and to be able to make to actually coach clients in this process? But there's some barriers into coaching in general. Like I think that, like the cost to become a coach is not cheap, right? It's something that is pricey. There's waiting lists, there's all kinds of things, and it's all about connections. But the Coaches of Color initiative started last year, and basically it's a mission, it's an apprenticeship to help an individual that is wanting to have a successful career or job, or however they want to put it out there, as an endurance coach. And we say endurance coach because we're not focusing just on runners. We're triathletes, if you do duathletes, if you're just swimming, you're just biking, whatever it is, there's a space for you. So Matt Fitzgerald and his team, and I am one of the board members of this organization, Coaches of Color Initiative, started this. And basically, of course, it was a eye-opening experience from the things that happened in 2020. And just really saying, okay, we have individuals that are interested in becoming an endurance coach. And we have individuals that are coaches of colors. What can we do to help to assist them? So this apprenticeship is a year-long apprenticeship. We have found our person for 2022, but it is a year-long apprenticeship. There is a scholarship that is provided to them. It's a $1,000 voucher that is given to the actual person that will get the apprenticeship every month for the 12-month span. They will have mentorship with the 80/20 Foundation, as well as all of the board members that are a part of the organization. So they will get direct resources, mentorship. They'll be working directly with the 80/20 Foundation with their coaching. Because 80/20 Foundation is also developing their own coaching program, and they will be able to receive that. And anything that they are looking for within their coaching background, we will help to provide the resources for them. It's a partnership. It's not just us throwing out information and resources to them and saying, hey, to figure it out, but it's more so, what do you need from us? What are some areas that you're concerned about? Is it how to coach and what to do with taxes? What do you charge your clients? How do I start a website? How do I talk to my clients? How do I build training plans? Like, what do I do? How do I build community relationships? All of those things are on the table, and it just depends on the person that receives the apprenticeship, what exactly they need. And we're just basically building something for them so that they can go and flourish in our community.
I love the implementation aspect of it, right? That it's not just like you said, a scholarship. But it sounds like that they're really dedicated at the implementation and mentoring to make sure that that person is successful, right? That they don't just get knowledge, but they can actually, have this career, right? And use it. Yeah. No, I love that. And yeah, it sounds like a great initiative. And I think, those that are, interested in that, keep an eye out for next year when they're looking for more. I know you guys had talked about, this is kind of the pilot phase, and, as years go on, who knows, it might grow, right? And there might be other slots available.
We would love for it to grow. So, we are taking all donations and everything to the organization. So definitely check out 80/20 Foundation under initiatives. It's something that we would love to have 10 people at one time. Like, we would love for it to grow. Right now, we have our one apprenticeship for 2021, but growth we would love to do. So the more people, the merrier would be amazing.
Yeah. So Let's pivot to a statement that I heard you talk about in one of your videos of why you don't like, because I've heard people say this before, the phrase running is my therapy or running is cheaper than therapy. Why do you not like that phrase?
Well, of course, with my mental health background, I find a lot of value in therapy in general. So I'll just start by saying that. But I'll stick with the first one and then I'll go into it. So running is my therapy. I definitely believe that running is therapeutic. Like it is something where if you go out to run, you're releasing endorphins, you're feeling good, your mind kind of clears, you a lot of times release stress and anxiety, can help with depression. Like I get all that. It can help with it. So I say that it's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And I always caution people on assuming that or putting it in the same bucket as what therapy is, because I really feel like it minimizes the value of actually receiving therapy. And I really think that there's a lot of times that yes, we can get on the pavement, we can lace up and go out for a run, we can make decisions and all of that stuff. Because I know for me, I make a lot of decisions. I find a lot of ideas while I'm out on my run. Like my mind goes while I'm out on my run, especially on my long runs. But at the end of the day, if you're really having conflict, concern, or if there is truly mental health concerns there and you're not getting professional help, it could be definitely jeopardizing your life and other people if you're not getting the help that you need. And so my concern is that a lot of people use running as the only outlet or the only solution to concerns when it's not the only. There's other things that can also help you. Now, when it comes to running is cheaper than therapy, I always caution people on saying that because I think it puts out there that there's a stigma that therapy is expensive and I shouldn't get it, which is not necessarily the case, especially when you think about how much we spend on running shoes, entering races, and doing everything else. There's people that can get therapy out here for $30 to $100. There are some sites that have free sessions from time to time, and different organizations that is providing free therapy. So assuming that running is cheaper than therapy may not be the case at all times. And I understand depending upon if you have insurance, if you are uninsured, or depending upon the area that you live, it may be a little different. But Dwayne, if you think about it, we spend $150 on shoes. We spend $50 to $250 on races. You can use some of that towards your mental health so that you can continue to strive in the running space. So I think that I know that it's those two phrases are something that's quickly thrown out there, but I think it kind of demeans the actual service of therapy and also doesn't allow people to understand that there should not be a stigma around mental health and getting professional mental health services. But using running as an outlet, but if you need more, that's okay and you should do so.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at that. And I think it's a phrase that many people say. And I might even said it myself. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've probably said it at some point. Like, I talk about, quite frequently the mental benefits of myself
Mhm.
running, right? And how that really keeps my, sanity as I'm running. But
Mhm.
I do think that you are correct that we need to be careful in that we don't make it seem that those who are in need of therapeutic services, that it's
Mhm.
just so easy for them that they should just go for a run and that's
Right.
going to help them and that's going to solve all their problems, right? And they're not going to suffer from depression if they just ran, right, like we
Mhm.
do. So I
Mhm.
think you bring up a great point, and that's why I wanted to kind of emphasize that. And it kind of reminds me of an episode that I did way back when in the beginning. I had an individual on who was the champion for those with disability and limb loss, Nicole Bear Kylan, on the show. And she had this whole movement of we just felt like running. And she was really kind of promoting a lot for those with disability. And she talked about how the phrase of a lot of people will make the phrase of I run for those who can't, or I run because I can, or something to that effect. And, her
Mhm.
mindset with someone who was an amputee who had limb loss was
Mhm.
like, well, that's not true, really. Those who have amputations, those who have disabilities, those who are wheelchair bound, like they can
Yep.
run and participate in races.
Mhm.
They just might need some extra support. They might need some extra
Right.
equipment. They might need some, right,
Mhm.
some modifications, and it to be accessible to them. Right. So it's
Mhm.
not that they can't do it. So this kind of reminded me of that phrase, because I
That's a
think that
good
is
one.
something, common that runners will say. And,
Yeah.
I know you've had some amazing like professional runners on your show, recreational runners, like
Mhm.
of all types. You have a very diverse, guest list, if you will, on your show,
Mhm.
which I love. And, can you share like one kind of inspirational story that really like resonated with you or stuck with you, that you would like
Mhm.
to share with, runners in our community who are maybe doubting their abilities?
Yeah, I think that I have two stories in my mind. One with Eric Logan, he's a duathlete, as well as Darrell Patterson. Both of those gentlemen are what I consider your everyday runner. So they're working full time. They're Darrell he can sweep some podiums, so he may get some checks out of this, but they're not sponsored athletes. Like they're everyday runners. But both of those gentlemen, Eric Logan started running very later in life. Obviously, he was battling with weight loss and some health concerns that transitioned him into kind of getting into running, and now he is doing very well with his an age group and things of that nature. He's definitely doing well in duathlete arena. But I just think that his story inspires me a lot because he did not allow age to stop him from continuing, and he found his area or his niche within the endurance space. And it is being a duathlete, there's not a lot of diversity and inclusion in that space. I know a lot of people don't even talk about duathlons. It's either you're kind of a runner or you're a
Right,
triathlete.
right. Yeah, yeah.
But duathlete is not really talked about a lot. And so I feel like in that area, I'm just very proud of him for finding that kind of niche in that space. And he's kind of he's definitely lost a whole bunch of weight. If you see his previous pictures, you'd be like, who is this? To be really striving in this space and honestly kind of being unapologetically him, starting a podcast and kind of doing his own thing as well. And I just really, for me, I find it very, very good when people can get into a space that they probably did not initially feel included, but they found their way and they're striving within it. So for me, it's definitely him. So that's Eric Logan. And then the other person I would say is Darrell
And do you know
Patterson.
off the top of your head, what is the name of his podcast? Let's give him a little
Yeah,
shout
it
out for
is
his show.
Run. I don't want to say it wrong. So give me just a second. I would definitely give
Sorry, I
him a
put you
shout
on the
out.
spot.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I don't want to say it wrong so that everyone can definitely find it. Let me make sure that I give you guys the correct. Here we go. Yes, no gimmicks, just sweat podcast.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We just connected today on Instagram and we messaged each other. So, and I saw
Okay.
his podcast. I started following it on Instagram. So,
Yeah.
okay,
So
cool.
his story is very good. So if you have time to like talk to him about his story and things of that nature, very good story, but definitely exceeding in the duathlete space. And then Darrell Patterson, he's another guy. Darrell was on my podcast episode 40, and Eric was on my podcast episode 30. But episode 40, Darrell Patterson, he is just one of those guys that's all about the mental of running. Like he's like, if your mental is not there, the running will not follow. Anytime I listen to him speak, he definitely is all about being in the right headspace and listening to your mind, your body will follow, and putting in the work and being consistent. And so anytime that I hear him talk, it's really about him being positive. And anytime I speak with him, he's always rephrasing something that I'm saying to make sure that I'm thinking about things in a positive way and not saying if, saying when, or it's just simple things that he really definitely connects on. So definitely check out his episode on episode 40. He's more of a Strava guy. He's not huge on social media anymore, but if you find him, Darrell Patterson on Strava, you'll definitely see the work that he's putting in. He went from 12-minute mile to now dropping fives and sixes. So he's a guy
Wow.
that's put in the work. So he's really,
Yeah.
really good, and he definitely can sweep some podiums here in Atlanta. So
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out as well.
yeah.
And I know you've been very transparent on your vlog about, your running injuries, and
Mm,
because this is the Healthy Runner podcast, and most people who are
yes.
listening at some point, either they have an injury now or they had an
Mhm,
injury in the past and they want to prevent injuries. So
mhm,
I'd be remiss to not ask about some of these. Do you mind sharing with our audience, what were the injuries you faced, and, you know,
mhm.
what was your take home message on kind of how you overcame them, or what were like the lessons learned as you battled through these injuries?
Yeah, so I've had thank I'll say thank God. Only two injuries in my running career since 2008 to now. And
Which is
unfortunately, this
remarkable, by the way. That's
yes.
remarkable. That is.
Yes. And this last injury was by far the worst. So I'll briefly talk about the first one because I feel like this last injury was what taught me the most lessons and I did the most work for. But my first injury was IT band issues. And that flared up at mile 8 at the Chicago Marathon in 2017. I did not know I had an issue. It was not anything that happened during training. I didn't have any
Wow.
issues. And mile 8 at my first marathon, 2017, excuse me, in my first marathon, I felt a pain in the left side of my knee. And it was literally me hobbling from mile 8 to 26.2.
Yikes.
And I
Wow. And you
learned
didn't have any pain during
I
those
had
long runs?
no
Like, did you do an
pain during
18
my
or
long
20
runs.
miler
I
and
went
no
all the
pain?
way up. I went all the way up to 20
What?
miler in my training plan. Yep. So
Wow.
nothing. And
Because,
so I
yeah,
was like,
typically that will creep up like mile 14, 16, 18, like all the runners that I've helped with that condition. But yeah, that's
yes.
odd. Okay.
So I did briefly see a specialist here in Atlanta for that. Took a lot of time off recovering from that injury. Of course, glute hamstring work, things of that nature to help with that. But I did do a lot of resting after that situation happened. Of course, I did race the following year. But the time off and the exercises that the therapist provided me for that, I was able to really work around, and I haven't had IT band issues since then, which is great. So I guess I did what needed to happen, but needed to do what I did what I needed to do to kind of help with that. Is something that I always keep a pulse on though, because I know that IT band issues can be reoccurring if you don't do what you need to do to continue to strengthen your muscles. But more so recently, earlier this year, I had issues with shin splints, and they were severe shin splints. And it was to the point where the biggest flare up was in the middle of a half marathon that I had, and it was excruciating, to the point where I probably should have pulled out of the race. Unfortunately, being a bad, being too determined allowed me to cross the finish line, but at
Stubborn,
a
we call that.
yes, stubborn, but at the detriment of me and being out for several months with the shin splint issues. But at this time, I ended up getting a physical therapist, which is Dr. Danny Espino. She's also been on our podcast. Dr. Danny, I worked with her for 8 months. So we did in-person sessions as well as virtual sessions, giving me different treatments and as well as different exercises over those 8 months. I literally started from ground zero, getting back to the pavement. So I was doing a mile a day. I was doing a half a mile a day. I was not doing hills. I was doing a lot of stretching and like calf raises and things of that nature. Definitely a lot of PT exercises. And a lot of strength training and cross training was intertwined into that. But I really had to work up slowly. Like that was the benefit of working with someone that is a physical therapist as well as a coach, is that she knew what exactly to do to get me there. And of course, you know that as well. But it literally was a half a mile to a mile a day, not running back-to-back days, spreading it out, ensuring that I was doing the strength training and everything that I needed. I did get a gait analysis again, assess my shoes, because that was something else that was potentially an issue during the time, is that I did switch over shoes that had a heel drop that was very different, that I did not assess appropriately for me. And then of course, working up miles probably too soon for that half marathon, too quickly for that half marathon. Um, But really working with her, taking the time off, doing the exercises that I needed, really focusing on recovery, really focusing on stretching, really focusing on the strength training exercises that were needed, and cool down and warm ups was also was heightened, I shall say, through that process. So of course, I know sometimes we do a couple knee grabs and leg swings, but like really warming up the body before I did any workouts and continuously to do so was something that was very important for me.
Oh man, that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you pretty much explained everything that's in my Spark Blueprint, or 5 tips to kind of run strong and healthy. With
Yeah.
the active warm ups and making sure you are warmed up. Recovery is one of my tips. Strengthening is
Mhm.
definitely probably the most important. And then the
Mhm.
training errors is really usually
Yeah.
what causes most of these injuries. And
Mhm.
going back to like the beginning of our conversation in terms of like inclusivity and those thinking that they're not a runner. If you train properly, right, and you don't make like the training errors that you
Mhm.
admittedly said ramped up too fast for that half marathon. And the running sneaker, the heel drop, that's another contributing factor that can
Mhm.
happen with some of these injuries. And so if someone's listening to this right now and they are struggling with shin splints, or they are struggling with IT band syndrome, and you're just saying to yourself like, oh, I'm not meant to be a runner, like I can never run. Like India's proof right here, right? She struggled with it as
Yeah.
well. Like she's overcome it,
Mhm.
and she's able to get back to running. So don't think
Yeah.
that you're not able to be a runner. You just need to do a little bit more research, get some more guidance, get a professional
Mhm.
like India
Right.
did. She got a PT
Mhm.
who's also a coach. And
Mhm.
you guys know how passionate I am about that, about blending those two and actually
Mhm.
knowing, exactly what you're doing for your runs, as well as rehabbing from the injury. And, I think your success story is definitely powerful, and shout out to, Dr. Danny, for
Yes.
taking good care of you. And yeah, we love to support all of our kind of independent practitioners out there. That's how I started my kind of business, was kind of
Yeah.
similar model to what she has, when I was seeing clients really just in person before doing all the virtual coaching that I'm doing now. So
Yeah. And
um,
I would definitely tell people too, if you're listening to this, it's better to take the time off now and heal the way that you need to and get the sprint training and all of that, like get all the tools in your toolbox now so that you can be successful going forward and you can be stronger going forward. I know a lot of people try to train through injury, they try to train through it because they're like, oh, I've signed up for this race, but it's like if you're continuing to run through injury, it's going to set you back at some point down the line. So just go ahead and take the time now to heal it the way that it needs to heal so that you can be successful going forward. And I think that's just something that I learned. I was very sad to have to sit back on a lot of races, decide not to run, but I am very happy to today that I was able to take that time off and heal the way that I needed to. And even though I'm still working back up on pace for myself and getting back to where I was, I'm healthier and the pace will come when it's time.
Yeah, and just to clarify that point, because I know Dr. Danny talked about this in your episode with her as well, and I'm passionate about this. Taking that time off, guys, does not mean like stop doing everything. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
just like rest, don't exercise, don't strengthen, don't run at all. And it
Mm-mm.
is a spectrum, but
Mhm.
taking time off, meaning maybe not run that race, but continue to train, is important. And I bring that up because even in my own family, this happened just before. My daughter, actually, this is her first time doing indoor track, and she's never run consistently in her life. And this is just
Mhm.
classic, like high school, they sign up and she's a volleyball player. And she was like, oh, I want to
Okay.
do indoor track during this time period before travel volleyball starts.
Right.
And, they ramp up from running nothing to running 6 days a week and
Mhm.
running races, like literally 10 out of 10
Right.
effort level. Right. So
Yeah.
she's got this little cute IT band that pops up,
Mhm.
and my wife is like, it was killing her yesterday. She's like limping around the house, and she has a volleyball tournament actually this weekend. So my wife's like,
Mm.
oh, well, maybe she shouldn't go to practice like the next 4 days. She's like, I want to make sure well, I'm like, well, we have to kind of see what the level of irritability is. And it doesn't mean she doesn't run at
Right.
all. but she's going to have to
Mm-hmm.
modify her running, because if she doesn't run at
Right.
all, that's not going to help her for
Mm-hmm.
next week when she has a meet that she has to compete at,
Mm-hmm.
for track. So
Yeah.
I think your point is very important point, but also for those listening, like what India is talking about, it doesn't mean you shut everything down and like just say to yourself like, oh, I'm not going to run for a month, I'm not going to run for 2 months, whatever it is in your
Mm-hmm.
mind, because you're like, oh, I'm dedicated to actually getting this healthy now. So there are
Right.
better ways, and to get healthy for longevity,
Mm-hmm.
and strategies that you need to do, to be proactive in that. And was that the
Yes.
first time that you actually did invest in a coach, when you were working with Dr. Danny, or have you worked with a coach prior to that?
No, I've had a coach prior to that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
Awesome.
all about, before I became a coach, I wanted to have a coach to really see kind of what it looked like. So I had a male coach and a female coach thus far. So I'm all about coaches having coaches. Like, we're human, we make mistakes, and
Oh, yeah.
we do things that we, shouldn't do, that we know we shouldn't do at times. And we also, I know for me, a lot of times I just want to take the coaching hat off and for someone to do it for me. Like,
It's
it's
so
a good
true.
investment, and it's a good investment, I feel. And then, other someone else can push me more than I can probably push myself. So yeah, so this is my Dr. Danny was my second coach, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and for someone who is hesitant in themselves, on getting a coach, what advice would you give them, since you have experienced, coaching before yourself and you are a coach? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I would definitely say finding a coach is similar to finding a doctor. I think you really have to take a step back to look at the coach's philosophy. What are their thoughts on coaching? How do they coach? What do they provide? What are not only just what are their credentials, but what's their style? Are they virtual only? Do they talk? How often do they talk to you? What's their level of communication? What is their what's their passion level? Meaning, are they a coach that's also going to kind of talk you through that mental block that you may have to get past a certain mileage? Or are they just going to be a coach that says, hey, give me 10 miles and tell me later how you what your pace was? Like, there's going to be various different coaches out here that provide different things. Then understand that not every athlete is great for certain coaches, and not every coach is great for a certain athlete. Like, there has to be a good mesh, and you finding that person, even though they may be amazing on social media, can they provide you the services that you need? And I think that the same way that a lot of coaches will interview the potential athletes should also interview the coach so that they can find out what they really are going to be receiving out of the training block.
Oh, great points. Great points indeed. I love it. I love it. And I just want to, because a lot of people are chiming in here on the Facebook Live here, and just
Uh-oh,
to
I can't
give
see
you some
anything. So you
feedback.
have
No,
to.
no, no, you're good. Coach Kat said that she's so passionate about these topics. She's been that slow runner who runs with a group who didn't
Mhm.
want anything to do with quote unquote slow runners.
Yeah.
And she was the heaviest girl who, goes into a running store and only saw shorts that no way she would be able to wear. So, your
And a
message
lot of
definitely.
times that's because they're not including a lot of different body types, even in this brand marketing. Like, when y'all are trying to like make different shorts and bras and shirts, like, you need to include people that wear things so that you can have a better understanding of what should be on the shelves. So yeah.
Yes, yes. And I know you're very passionate about that, as well. And I know on your YouTube channel, you also do some like product reviews, right? And for
Mm-hmm.
those like, so it was like a running bra review, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
for those that struggle finding like athletic gear, right? That they might be a larger body type. So definitely check out some of India's content there. And I love that you do advocate for making sure that size inclusivity. And Amy says that that's what drew her to running, was a diversity in people. She spectated at a race and saw so many people of different looks and backgrounds, and that was like right in her wheelhouse. And she loves the running community, and we love
Yeah.
having you in our community, Amy.
Yes.
And yeah, Catherine says, Kat, another cat, also says, India, I love your message on running and therapy.
Thank
So
you.
she loves that. And then Tanya also chimes in saying, says, finding sports bras are tough. So do you want to give a quick little plug? Because I know you got a lot of content on your channel, but for someone, if Tanya's looking for a sports bra, right? If someone is a little bit on the larger size, like, is there one that you highly recommend, or a brand that you recommend, or are there many different varieties or tips on what they should look for?
Yeah, so there's different varieties that I recommend. I wear different bras for different distances. So depending upon if I'm running long, if I'm just out for a quick 3 mile run, it definitely varies. Some of the top 3 bras that I'm wearing right now is the She Fit bra. Definitely check out my review on that. I am a reviewer that gives the pros and cons, the good, bad, and the ugly. So there are, like, for example, one of the cons of that bra is just chafing. There, you will potentially get some chafing with that, but I also mentioned some of the things that I do for that. But bras that have adjustability in the straps as well as the under area, those usually have better support. So I use that. I also use Wazdell bras right now. So the Fly Zip is one that I did a review on, and I definitely absolutely love that one. It's more of a best feel, very softer material than the She Fit bras, but it all depends on what you're going for and kind of what you need in regards to that. I do have an Athleta bra as well that I absolutely love. I'm drawing a blank on the name of that one, but definitely message me if you have any questions on bras. I can definitely let you know some of the top ones that I use. I am a double D, so I definitely have to have the support that I need.
Nice. This is great, because sometimes I get some of these questions and I obviously can't answer these. So this is great. We're sharing it in our running community. Usually I'll field these to one of the female coaches on our team to help out there. And I also like your comment before about, working with males, females, and that's something that's come up before as well with us, in that, some of our female coaches can definitely address a lot other topics that are specific to female running, and some of the problems and struggles that happen that really, me as a male, I can't, because I've never experienced those things. Right. So finding kind of the right person and the right coach that you trust is super important as well. So whether it's running, podcasting, announcing, kind of the miles from India, brand growth, what's next for India Cook?
Yeah, continuing to grow my brand. Race announcing is something that I started back in 2021. So I hope to grow that. I already have 2 races set up for 2022. So I'm really excited on that front. I mean, it's nothing better than being a runner that is also a race announcer. So especially here in Atlanta, I can kind of yell out their names, people that I know that are coming across the finish line. But it's just a great energy to have. So I'll be definitely branching that out. And hopefully once COVID really dies down, I can get to do some more in-person, whether it be motivational speaking, live podcasts, and really connecting with more people like yourself. I really enjoy connecting with people and just really having these type conversations to kind of grow different perspectives. Because my thing, Dwayne, is if we're not having these conversations, it's a lot of stuff that's left up to assumption. And when you learn about people's experience, where they've been and how they feel about different things, it really can open your eyes to things. So we just really need to continue to have more conversations like this. So I plan to kind of broaden my brand, as well as communicating more and connecting with people on the front. And of course, helping some of these brands get to where they need to be in regards to diversity and inclusivity.
Nice. I love it. I love it. And yeah, the connection with, other runners in our community, I just love that as well. And that's why I love doing this, show so much, is just meeting great people like yourself. And it is interesting how that all works, like the whole social media thing, right? Like, we were promoting this live, and it's like people in your community, reached out, and I was messaging them. And I just love connecting with other, like-minded runners in our community. All right. So we ready to have some fun now?
Uh-oh, yes. We've already had a lot of fun. What else could it be?
All right. I've only done this a couple of times on the podcast now. I usually do this only for like fellow running podcasters, since I know you're like comfortable behind the mic. And the last time I did this with Ali Feller. So you got some big shoes to fill here. No pressure at all.
Gotta love Ali. Okay, Ali, I'm gonna get you if this is hard. Okay.
All right. So we're gonna do a little spark lightning round. So these are gonna be like some quick rapid fire questions. We're not going to go into too much depth or detail, but just more fun-based questions, just kind of interesting, things that people can learn about you. So You ready to go?
Yes.
Let's do this. All right. So while crushing your miles, are you a
Uh-huh.
music or a podcast listener?
Both, but more so music.
All right. So what is your favorite go-to running song that you always make sure you add to your race playlist?
It's Let's Go. Who raps that? It's a hip hop song. But
Let's
the
go. Do, 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 do. Right.
not that
Let's
one, not,
go.
not that
Oh,
one. It's gosh, I can't think of who raps it. It's like, let's go. If you want it, you can get it. Let me know. I can't think of the rapper,
okay.
but that's it.
Okay. Nice. All right. All right. We're gonna have to get that one. You're gonna have to get back to us. You're gonna have
I
to
will. I
comment on
will.
the and let us know who that is so we can add it to our playlist.
Yes, it's a good
So
one.
as we mentioned, you got a lot of medals behind you. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite race medal that you've ever received? You're like, oh, this is my favorite.
My first marathon, Chicago 2017.
Okay.
It's
For the
just,
sentimental value.
yeah, for the
Absolutely.
sentimental value. It may not be the prettiest, but it is for sentimental value. It is my favorite.
All right. Favorite Netflix binge.
You.
Okay. I haven't watched that one. Okay.
Hey, girl, look it up. You look it up.
Okay. Oh man, I'm scared now.
No,
Do I
you're
need to
good.
make
It's
sure
good.
my girls aren't around? Like the kids are away when I go to search it?
But it's interesting.
All right. What about favorite movie?
Love and basketball.
Okay. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
What food is a lock that you will be adding to your upcoming wedding menu?
Oh, that's a good question. We will be doing one of our hors d'oeuvres will be shrimp and grits.
Okay, love it. Nice. So we didn't mention that earlier, but you are engaged to be married. When is the
Yeah.
wedding date? Do you have a date?
Yes, we're doing spring 2023. So I'm really excited. So it is coming and planning is underway. So yeah.
Nice. That's exciting. Very
Thank
exciting.
you.
Exciting time in your life. And yeah, just enjoy the journey and don't let the
Yeah.
stress get to you.
Nope, nope,
No
nope, nope, nope.
bridezilla, right?
No, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, I don't want any stress vibes. We're okay over here. I have a wedding planner and she is absolutely amazing and I'm doing pretty well. So we're good. I think it's a
Awesome.
benefit that I'm getting married a little later in life because compared to if it was 10 years ago, I probably would be a different person.
Right, right. Oh my goodness. And Coach Whitney chimes in that she says she loves you as well.
Thank
Um,
you.
um, all right. So we're getting into the final stretch here. This is going to be the last
Okay.
question we ask all our guests here. So if you
Okay.
could change one thing about the misconception of inclusivity and diversity in the running community, what would that be?
I would say it is inclusivity and diversity are two separate things, but you can't have one without the other. And I think that we really just need to ensure that we're focusing on that, help to empower people in different spaces, allow there to be a seat at the table, and be open to the different thoughts and of others and experiences of others, and incorporate changes where they're needed and also to understand that we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Just because I'm a person of color doesn't mean that everything that I do is perfect. And something that you may do, Dwayne, may not be perfect, but it's also about lessons learned and coming together as a community.
Yeah, my wife will tell you there's a lot of things I don't do that are perfect, but
I think because we go into things wanting to be perfect, and some people may not be working on their diversity and inclusion because they want to be perfect or don't want to say or do the wrong thing. But I think if we don't step out there to try, it'll never change.
Oh, so true. So true.
Mhm.
And I am trying to get more comfortable with that, honestly. Like this was a big step for me, tell you the truth,
Mhm.
because I've always felt that way as well, where
Mhm.
you don't want to say the wrong thing or it's got to be perfect. So thank you for bringing that up because I think
You're
a
welcome.
lot of people feel that way.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I know I said that was the last question, but finally,
Okay.
many of our runners will be listening to this episode on their run,
Yes.
like I do for your show. What
Mhm.
message do you have for our healthy runner community runners crushing their miles right now?
Just continue to move. I think that whether you're in a very healthy place or if you're currently pivoting because you might have an injury, continue to move, whatever that means to you. Try to do your best to stay positive and know that movement and miles are amazing as a combo. But if you're only able to do movement right now, that's okay as well.
Oh, love that. Powerful message there. That's awesome. So, guys, just recapping here in this episode, really, India kind of shared her running journey. We talked about inclusivity. We talked about some mental health. We talked about overcoming injuries. We even talked about product reviews for bras, which I didn't think we were going to go there, but we did. And I'm sure there are going to be many runners who really connected with you today. And there are many that are commenting on the Facebook Live, just saying how much they love this episode. They love your message. And yeah, Tanya's asking what your show name is. So for those that are want to learn a little bit more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my podcast name is the Run Duo podcast, and we're on all major podcast platforms. So we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, all of the major podcasting platforms. We're there. My name on Instagram is I of Indigo Runs, and that's ENDIGO. So I of Indigo Runs is my Instagram page. And then Miles from India is my brand name, and it also is my YouTube name. So on YouTube, it is Miles from India.
And we will certainly put all the links to those in the show notes. As always, is there a story behind the IG name? Indigo?
No, not a fancy one. No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Years ago before I came who I am, but it kind of was one of those things where the name just kind of stuck. And I have so many things out in the world now that if I was to change it, it would mess up if someone's looking for me. So it just stays. I do have a Mouse from India Instagram page, but it's just for my YouTube. But yeah, so it's nothing fancy. It was a random thing that I came up with several years ago, and it just stayed.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's one of the things that you get people who change their like account names like every couple of months, and I'm like, I can't even find you anymore.
Find them. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why I'm like, I have publications. I have people that, have interviewed me years ago, and in their stuff, they have, I have Indigo Run. So if I was to change it and someone wants to go back and look for it, they won't be able to find me. So I just keep it.
True. No, very good point. This was so great, honestly, meeting you. And I'm so glad that we connected finally. This was so fun. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to share all this important information, honestly, with our healthy runner community. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, India.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I truly enjoyed this. And thank you everyone that is on the live or that will be listening to this podcast. I hope that my message could be useful at some point. And thank you for everything that y'all are doing in the run community.
Yeah. And thank you, mostly to you guys, the listeners, whether you're listening now on your run, watching the video version within our Healthy Runner Facebook group or on the Spark Your Training YouTube channel. I appreciate all of you. Make sure and go ahead and subscribe to the Run Duo podcast, as I know you will love the show just as much as I do, which makes all those long runs just go by so much quicker. And then, yeah, definitely follow her Instagram account just to get a little bit more positivity in your feed each day. She's very positive spirit, as you can tell. And I love seeing her posts, and you'll see a lot of people resonate with her message as well. And then, finally, really support her YouTube channel, right? The best way you can do that is hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, so then you get notified by the next product review that might help you, or the next running tip that might help you. So let's support India in her journey. And guys, remember, every week we go live within our Healthy Runner Facebook group doing these live podcast episodes. So just check out our events tab to find out what the next video will be and the next episode that's going to help you in your running journey. So thank you guys again. Remember, let's stay active, let's stay healthy, and let's just keep on running. Until next time.
Thank you guys.